We're just different positions of becoming awake. That's all it is. And you can't judge someone else because the next thing you know, you might find yourself there again. And you don't need to do that. This room is full of beings that don't need to do that anymore. You just need to wake up to your divinity. Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
How you doing?
Excellent.
I was wondering about, do you have an event in your life that you can remember where you feel like you went through, because I feel like we all kind of have experiences that we remember that like put us on our journey. And do you have like maybe the one that you remember the most, like to be the turning point of your life into where the synchronicity presented itself, maybe on a more intense level? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sure. What might that be? It's hard to define that because they put me through quite a bit for a while. So, trying to think which one ripped me the most. Can't remember. You know, I can't remember which one ripped me the most. Because as soon as I saw Twitchell, I knew. It was just I knew I was already here to do this. Everything just came in, boom, 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 boom. The most scariest, I suppose, is when they took me to this prison. And I just still don't know where it was. I think it was in the astral world. It could have been somewhere in the causal, but that was a life-changing experience because it was, I could feel it through my whole essence. The freedom was sucked out of those that have to spend time there. And even though we're dealing in embodiments, I can still feel that. So those that I suppose that really wreak havoc on a lot of souls' lives probably spend time there. I don't know, but it is frightening beyond belief. And so I kind of walk better. I watch what I do. I try not to hurt others or be involved in that, you know, because some of these things we have to pay back and go for isn't worth it. My opinion. But all in the process of awakening. You have to put it all in that. And that sort of thing. My most dramatic experiences was learning that I could be a traveler out of body. And all the worlds that happened with that. I really didn't have any bad experiences that way. It's been an opening journey for me. Just, I remember. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wherever it is. I'm
here,
sorry.
Dr. Morse. Dr. Morse, over here.
Oh.
On your left.
Oh.
Thank you so much for this divine, enlightening session of spirituality. Very much appreciated. So I have a question about attachment that you spoke about earlier.
About what?
Attachment. Not so much with a client or a patient or what have you, but how about children? I have two. My little one is actually very gifted, and I'm very attached to him. Like, he tells me that, he's 600 years old, not 10, and that I was once a man, and he knows that, stuff like that. So I'm very, very connected and attached with him. What do you have to say about connection to, let's say, a being that you helped create, at least in the physical form, of course?
Well, they put these souls in these bodies that you guys bring here, and it just fits their experience perfectly. So know that you're more of an awakened one. You will bring more of an awakened ones to this planet. The bodies they're coming into are a mess, and that's why we're fixing them. But you're bringing in, a lot of you guys, some high beings, and you're going to find these children are not going to follow the same academic journey that everyone else is. They don't do well in school. They're bored. They're much more advanced. Academics has to drastically change on this planet. It in and of itself is part of the problem. It's part of what locks souls into the intellectualism, into the mental worlds. So you have to be careful with that. So you're going to see your children as being little warriors. And the more you get them raw, the more their divinity, the more their power, the more their awareness is going to come out. And you're going to have spiritual beings of all levels. I mean, I see it already. There's things that come out of 3- and 5-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 7-year-olds. It's like Lauren that wrote me. Remember I told you that? Quite astute awareness for such a young embodiment. But don't let the young embodiment fool you. These souls are ready to take off or here to help, one of the two. You're either bringing a soul in their journey for the last lifetime, or they're here to help, one of the two, or a combination of both. And realize that. For you mothers that are conceiving, get within and contact the entity, the soul that's moving into that body you're producing, and communicate with them. I knew a lot of women that did that all the time. They knew exactly why the soul was there. I'm just coining that word. But that entity was there and using your body. Why? What's your children? Why do they pick you? Who is that child? Not the body. Who is that child? And what are they here for? That's the cool part of being a mom. Work on the higher worlds. Do it at night when everyone's sleeping, and shut down their physical world. You start working in their astral and mental worlds. You know you can work with your friends out away from the physical. I help a lot of you here and there. All the beings, all the masters do. You know, life is more involved in these higher worlds than they are here. Well, it's a cool thing, you know, to be a mother and to produce an embodiment. And then you have this being that can use that to express themselves on this plane. It would be real cool if you knew who that being was and why it's here. We tend to look at these little bodies as little bitty bodies. That's because man keeps looking at this level. You got to shift your perspective, or you'll be the leaf blowing in the wind. You'll be the effect, always seeking the God that you think exists. And I've always said, the seeker of God never finds God. He becomes the eternal seeker, jumping from one level to another level, all the while being God itself, lost in the divine illusion. There's so many great stories about the masters and stuff. There's so many great things out there. Open up to these spiritual beings and let them help you. Fubi Quantz. You get him to work with you, you're something. If he was doing this lecture, he'd just be sitting here smiling, looking at you. Nothing to say. I attended a lecture once in this temple where if you wanted to understand a book, you merged in the light of the book, and the light filled you with the knowledge of the book. And so I was attending a talk at that, and this was a temple where this book was nothing but light on this pedestal, just a big light. And he came, sat down, who knows how long it was, got up and walked out. And it's like, I get it. And one day he said to me, he said, you know, my dear one, he said, if you stop thinking and stop talking, there's nothing you won't know. I get it. If you stop thinking and stop talking, there's nothing you won't know. You must realize the mind isn't the seat of knowingness. It's the seat of knowledge. Awareness, consciousness is what you are. And once you shift and understand that and work with more of that, you can only touch that as the observer. In creation, when you invoke thought, you are now in creation now. Your attention is now into the mind, and riding those mental waves, right? And when you invoke the emotions, those are waves of energy. And you surf those waves of emotions. In reality, there's no emotions in consciousness. There's no thought in consciousness. All of those things exist within it. Very difficult to define it because we're trying to define it from an intellectual point of view, and there's no way. Can't define the infinite. Can only be it. And in meditations, when you find yourself starting to expand, just relax more and more and more. Let yourself go. Ask for your spiritual guide to help you then. Walk with you, show you what you need to know for your journey of awakening. Because if you're not the awakened one, then you're the follower. I got a nice little bumper sticker in my desk drawer that says, if you're not lead dog, the view's always the same. If you're not lead dog, the view is always the same. You ever watch Alaska programs? Okay. So, you must be the leader. And you already are. If you play the role of the follower, you're just playing the role. And maybe that's the role that you need to play. But if you want the higher consciousness and all that that implies, you must be it. And walk with that. As you walk through the multitudes, you walk with knowingness, you walk with light. The giver of consciousness, the giver of awareness, the giver of truth. It's a fun thing. Okay, if we have any more questions?
Yes.
Ah, my man.
Dr.
Two?
Morse, what do you say?
2 questions?
Actually 3.
Good.
But you already answered one. You already answered one by answering her question, so
Thank you.
it's 2. So first I'd like to say it's an honor to receive those jewels from you today. And it's a blessing to see you. It's a blessing to see you in your high priest mode today.
I need a drink.
So the first question is about followership, because they always tell us to be leaders, or everybody wants to be a leader, but in my opinion, it takes followership, proper followership, to become a great leader. So I'd like to know your take on that, because it's not talked about so much.
Sure.
The science of being a good follower. And the second question is concerning genetics and spirituality, because science tells us that we have 99% of our DNA that is junk. And I wanted to know if, in my opinion, that junk is probably our spiritual insights, or our spiritual gifts, or our guardian angels watching over us. And 1% is what we see. So 99% is what we don't see. So we're much more than what we just see. So I wanted to know what your take is on that 99% junk. And there's a new field in genetics, epigenetics, that starts to dismantle a lot of those false scientific beliefs. So I wanted to know what your take is on this subject.
All right. You know, we were talking medically, and the MF gene, you know. When you're looking, even when we look at scientific data and all this, you're looking at humans and their journey to try to understand what already exists. You're talking about consciousness versus some genetic passing of cells. And that's not a world you need to live in. Who cares? You know, each level has its own consciousness, their own little states of consciousness. You don't want to be wrapped up in that. Who cares? You have to accept yourself as a being far, far from this world, of a being that is unlimited in nature. Doesn't go through any genetic tree. In the cell genetics, that's just for your physical body. Don't let that consciousness wrap you. You are here to, you can fix your genetics if you like. Thanks. You can fix your genetics if you want. But why worry about that? Pull yourself into consciousness and it'll all move your body as it is. And when you leave, it'll crash, let me tell you. Your consciousness will support your body in ways that you can't believe. Even for those that are full of pain and weaknesses. I had a good friend, very spiritual. Every time he gets rid of his car, it falls apart. It's so powerful that he wears it out. It supports, it runs, and then as soon as he gets out of it and lives it away, it falls apart. Life will support your consciousness. But I would not think one way or another about genetics, only in that we're dealing in the physical and that sort of thing. If you're referring to the other bodies in genetics, I don't pay much attention with that because I don't see that. We're dealing more in light rays or frequencies of magnetics, and we're more into states of consciousness. And even at the cell level and the nano levels, these are all states of consciousness. You want consciousness, not these little states of. You can enjoin any state of consciousness you want. I wanted to know what it was like to be at plants and animals, and so back I went. They showed me. I think I've talked to some of you about that before. Be careful what you ask for. You're at this level for a reason. Going back into, I don't want to use the word lower, that's not appropriate, but still, lower states of consciousness is extremely limiting to the level you've worked yourself up to be aware of. So you have to be careful with that. But I wouldn't let my mind engage in any of that kind of thinking, my dear one. Be the light, be the sound. Blow genetics as you will. What was your first question? I forgot. I live in the now. I can't go back. I don't want to engage my mind. Do you want me to engage my mind? No. What was it? I forgot.
Fellowship.
Well, you know what? We have all concepts of leadership. The id is a driver, of course, of your world and drives you into different levels where you can, this is just all different levels of everything, from leaders to followers to all kinds of things. When you awaken, you're neither one. You're the light giver of God. You're a God man. You're not an earth man. You're a God man, being woman or man. Because as you awaken, you cease to identify with your gender. You simply just are. You might be using a female or a male body. Okay, have fun with it. Don't get wrapped up in it. A lot of these people get wrapped up in it. They want to be the female or they want to be the male. Why don't you want to be the God man? But they're not ready. They're still playing in the fields of dreams. And this is the field of dreams. Remember I said you cannot imagine anything that does not exist. As scary as that might be. You feel somewhat secure. I wouldn't. You're in a warring universe here, and there's a lot of them. And then there's a lot of divine places to be as well. You have the good, the bad, and you know what? But nothing can hurt you when you work from that eternal now, when you work from consciousness. Doesn't matter what happens to your body, but you're protected more. If you want protection, shift back into consciousness where your mind isn't being played by others. There's always someone stronger mentally. A lot of psychics out there, a lot of channelers. Don't you ever channel. That's when you pick up the hitchhikers. I knew a gentleman that could work like a Ouija. But to see him in action was amazing. And the entity involved with him was amazing. And it told him, he says, you do not do anything but this. You keep yourself focused right into this channeling. He didn't. He started to open up to automatic writing and everything else. So I'm sitting in a house of a gentleman that has, we almost saved him, but except for the biopsy that the surgeon finally talked him back into, and then we couldn't save him anymore. And very bad case of cancer here. And a bunch of us were out visiting him. And I had this gentleman with me. And this gentleman was talking to my significant other in another room, and they were talking spirituality, and I was talking to man with cancer, but everybody was talking, but I was listening. Be a listener. And he said something she disagreed with. She said, no, that's not how it is. And I turned and looked, and the eyes got red, and this reptilian face came right out and started to attack her. I saw the golden light surround her. Ask her about it today, how scary that was for her. You must understand, this is a universe heavily traveled by all levels. I was talking to someone about Mount Washington and out in Washington, where a lot of them come into. They come in all over. But there's all levels of those. We're not alone by any stretch. You're never alone. And yet, you're always alone. Do you get the difference? There's no one but you ever. And when you get into that alone state, that's where it all is. When I was growing up, I had to go where the darkness was. I had to stretch that open. I had to see what was behind the darkness. I had to see what was deep within the alone state. When I read Twitchell's book, one of his books said that alone exists. And boy, I went whoosh. And it's that pull deep within you to that state of aloneness. That's why I say, find yourself a place where you can be with just yourself. No one else with you. Get into that alone state. Not the physical, not the mental, not the emotional, deep within the alone state. That's the state of individuality, the state of the one. It is the I am. Remember that old saying? Is it I think, therefore I am? Remember we were talking about that? Or is it I am, therefore I think? It's I am, therefore I think. The mind is not the supreme being. It's only your tool to use while you're here. It would like you to think it's a supreme being. And it will tell you it's a supreme being. But it is an illusion that it lives by. The mental worlds are the toughest. But you guys are up for the job. All right. Anyone else?
Dr. Morse,
Yes.
over here.
Oh, hi.
Hey. I love you, and I'm so grateful to be here with you and
Thank you.
everyone.
Isn't it fun?
It's amazing.
I love it.
Amazing. My question, I have so many questions around this topic, but my question is around death, so-called death.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering what your understanding is when we leave the body. You know, I've witnessed many people leave, and it feels like it's such a beautiful portal. But at the same time, you know, you hear about the Tibetan philosophy, you're going to go be in the bardo, you're going to be tempted, you know, there's just all these different things. So I'm just wondering, what is the highest, most conscious way to walk when we walk out of these bodies?
Keep working on your awareness of the now. Keep working on your pure consciousness. And that's where you will be when you translate. You bring up a good point. You will be that which that you've created. If you create all kinds of activity and karma here that you haven't paid for, you will swing back to pay for it. Some of you are doing that now. Get it done. Get out. And I'm not saying that to just get out of this world. This world is always going to have inhabitants, but you got to realize this really isn't a real world. It's wavering between ionization. It's wavering between positive and negative. It can be swept away in a blink of an eye. This is just the theater. This is just the movie for you. It's the place to have the movie. And the movie isn't even real. The only thing real in all of this is you, each and every one of you. And when I take each and every one of you and I merge it, you're talking to the divine. So, never be afraid to leave the physical. It's how you leave it. Sometimes, you know, some people leave it in a lot of pain. We've seen some deaths, of course, in our world because there are many souls that come to us that are going to, it's their time to leave. Whatever you can depart to that being, so when it leaves, it understands more. It'll be very helpful. Because they're only leaving their physical body. They're not leaving their emotions and they're not leaving their mind. They still have those bodies. When you leave here, you'll still have those bodies unless you're more awake. That's why I say get as awake as you can. Some of you are so young, there's a lot of work to do here. We're just now getting this big thing to start to turn. So you've got some stuff to do here. Good stuff, because the experience on this planet can be immensely cool. Man doesn't choose that right now. He's still wallowing in these lower levels of war and judgment. And yet, God, through those who will listen, has been saying, don't judge. And no one listens. Until you get ready to want to get out of here, and then you want to pull back. Doesn't matter anymore, does it? If you have babies, these aren't babies, only little bodies. You could have one gigantic spiritual being in that little body. Let me tell you, and I see it all the time. These little 5-year-olds write me. These are giant beings. And the mom and dad is letting them watch our videos, and I always try to infuse consciousness in there. Infuse that in your works. So you're ringing the bell of that individual. Remember who you are? Remember? No. It's about time you do. And you will only remember when you quit identifying with the movie, with the drama, the dharma. This is just the field of dreams, as we've said. Who's the player on this field? That's what you want to be. And your transition from one level to another. When Dr. Jensen left, and I think I've told many that he was trained in crystal healing. He was taken out of the body nightly and trained. And he told me I didn't know what to do with it here. And I told him, I said, Doc, it's not for here. But then we got a psychic for him, for his wife here, because she liked those sort of things. And in her conversation with him, he said, it's just like walking across the street, honey. So never fear that sort of thing. What you want to fear is limiting yourself, creating a lot of karma for yourself that you'll have to pay back. Because this is cause and effect, and it's very real. Like I said, I don't know any spiritual beings is above that. Yes.
Hi, Dr. Morse.
Hi, honey.
I am so grateful for you.
It's
Thank
been
you.
fun, hasn't it?
It's been amazing.
This has been a good seminar, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's because of you guys. I'm always here. It's because of you guys we had a great seminar. My love to you. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm so grateful that you persevered and you stayed strong in who you are and
Oh,
what you
thanks.
know, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And I would like, in my mind, I operate from this illusion that that I operate from my heart, and I realize that more and more now that I have these barriers around my heart, and I get a lot of information downloaded, and it's overwhelming to me at times, and I would like to hear your thoughts about where I can operate more from a heart center.
All right, so I'm going to pull that over to a question this lady said about attachment and emotions. You must be careful when you work from the heart that it's not an emotional heart, that it's a heart of strength, that it is a heart of awareness, that it's a heart of consciousness. Then the divine love will emanate from you without thought, without desire. It naturally emanates from you because you are that now. You are the source of all things, and you're understanding that more. You've opened up all your mind and your emotions to your consciousness to bring this force through. That's the true heart. Heart in spirituality is not meant to be emotions. That's man's interpretation. It's meant to mean consciousness. True love is pure consciousness. And it's so overwhelming and nirvanic. It's intense. We only hook the word love because there's no other word we can tie to something so nirvanic, something that brings so much ecstasy and joy to a being. But it's unique. Try being just always consciousness. And we've never talked from the yellow up. But that is when you keep being more and more. Those are worlds of beingness, not activity. Some of us have our places there. You can create anything you want. You can create anything you want. But these are levels of beingness, more and more deep within the all. But you can only go so far, as I've said, with the body. I thought I could maybe go a little further. I was expanding one time so much, and more and more and more and more. I wanted the top of the mountain. I wanted to become awake of myself at that level. And I kept saying, you don't stop, you won't stop. And you got to finish this, can't stop. And finally I tried to stop myself. Finally I stopped myself. But it's that easy to want to go home. I use that word, but that sort of thing. But love is simply consciousness expressing itself in however way you wish to do that. But if you want to give love to others, it's a trap. Be very careful with that. It'll bind you to the object of your desire. If you desire to give love, that's a trap, my dear. Be love, and it'll bring to you that which needs your love. You don't have to go out and seek to give it. Okay? And be careful with that, because when you slip down into personal love, that's where the attachments come, even for your children. And unfortunately, a lot of mothers and fathers are getting their children ripped from them, from a very perverse modality. And so, you know, we're here to put a big stop on that, and it is essential that we do it in the way that we're doing it. It's important that we do it with awareness and truth. That's why we have all of these lovely people with us. Why we have you guys. We're not just fanatics. We're here to set the thing to truth. We're here to show this world the truth of where you guys got off. You can't continue this same world of destruction, or you will be destroyed. I can just tell you. So that's why we're all here, to help turn this around. It's just like a school refining its ability to teach, so to speak. Any more questions?
We love you and appreciate you, Dr. Morse. Can you hear me?
We're over here.
Yeah. We love you. Thank you.
Love
So
you
are
too.
you married?
I'm not.
Okay. And the reason why I ask that is because I find that as we do become awake, and it is a lonely, not a lonely, but you're alone on your journey, that you had mentioned significant others, and I see
I do
people
have one.
divorced a lot, and I see a lot of
Actually,
difficulty in finding mates.
Yeah. You know, I live with my ex-wife. We were married and divorced twice. So I live in the back in an RV where I have my peace. But, you know, marriage is a contract, of course, and I just hate contracts. But I've only had one divine one that I spent time with on the female side that was someone that's like-minded. And that was so nirvanic I couldn't even express it. And they had sent her to me because I was in a little bit of a low. But these experiences can trap you too. So sometimes if you feel like all your experiences are just making you pull to yourself, they are. It's difficult when you ride with someone that doesn't follow your focus, and particularly in the diet. My diet has been so radical up and down because of that. Or you create conflict, you know? Yes, we finished that question?
Yes. Yeah. I
Oh.
think that it's hard to find like-minded to share your journey with.
Very difficult. Very difficult. And I don't know what to say about that. You know, you're always going to find those that you need to finish up with. So you finish up with them. My second wife was that way. We were married only 2 or 3 years, and we just realized we weren't growing or anything together. We just weren't growing. We were just hanging. And I needed to grow. I needed to open. It wasn't a negative thing. You know, there's so many people fight over these relationships. And it's like, why? If you don't get along, you're not suited for one another, change. There's plenty of souls out there. But you have to be careful not let the other individual tie you down, lock you down in a way. I've always had my own space, even with my marriages. So I was in a big, I'll just say it was a big house in Switzerland. And I was being wined and dined by Shania Twain and Mud at that time. And she says, come here. So I followed her, and their mansion was on a hill overlooking the lake and everything. And she says, come here. They were very spiritual. Mud and Eileen, that's her real name, were Radhaswamis. And Radhaswami is the Shabda Yoga group. Shabda Yoga is a yoga of light and sound. When you have a teaching that professes the light, then you have a teaching of the lower worlds. When you have a teaching that professes of the light and sound, they're at least to the Satnam or soul or the yellow position. I'm more in harmony with those people. She says, come here. So I followed her down a path, down the hill, and she had had a bungalow built into the side of the mountain, and that's where she had her alone space. We all have to find our place to have aloneness. It's how you connect, as intense as that may be. So we all inside of ourselves have that, you know. And when it pulls on you and calls you, you're ready. It's time. Let yourself go. Okay?
Dr. Morris, over here.
Oh, where are we?
I
I see.
I just want to thank you for all the work that you and your team have been doing. It's just so awesome. I'm having a blissful time, and I don't want to leave, but I guess I have to.
I love you, honey.
Well, my question is, what are your thoughts on guided meditation?
Well, be careful with the guide. Just be careful with the guide. Be careful who you open up to. If you're visiting a psychic or a channel, be careful. Be careful. Because some of these people are more powerful than they know. And if they like you, they can sit with you for a while, follow you home. So be careful with that. You know, it's easy to have a being set in your space and you not even know it. And there's a lot of beings that lose their bodies rather quickly, don't know what, they're kind of stuck in limbo, and there's a lot of that. So there's a lot of adhesions out there, unfortunately. But, you know, it's about gaining strength and watching. Be the watcher on that threshold of your awareness to where you don't let just anything in. Matter of fact, if you work from the position of all of the now, there's no place to get in because there is no other room. You're the total of consciousness. You're in the God state, or at least the beginning of it. Yeah, Ellie.
I love you.
Love you, my dear one.
I wanted to respond to the relationship question because I went through my journey alone, and I never had anyone around me that was following my spiritual or my eating plan, so to speak. And I found that that was very essential to my journey. It was very essential to my awakening, to my growth, because the strength is always in your alone state. So if you're searching for someone, or even thinking that you need someone around you to do what you do or to support your journey, you have not gotten to the place where you have totally embodied your own responsibility or seen your own inner strength. Because that strength only comes, the way I see it, from when you are in the alone state. That's what people ask me, but Hilda, it's not simple, that's hard. And I'm like, it was never about simple.
Yeah.
It was never, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
It's about strength, you know, and about you, only you.
Sure. You know, you can have relationships of all levels, and you don't have to let the level of the individual you're with affect your level, not judging, but understanding. It's okay. You know, I've spun with a couple souls for a while, and because they weren't in my level of awareness, I don't judge, I don't care. Who cares? You know? If you want to know, then we can teach you. Yeah, do or not do. Mm-hmm. Well, that's how doing without doing, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're at the point of no activity. You're at the point of consciousness. There's no activity in consciousness. There's no duality. There's no movement. It just is. Very difficult to define something that's omnipresent and omniscient and omnipotent that has movement or activity to it, because it's a total. It's a sum total of all things. It is in all places at all times, all powerful, all conscious. Very difficult. You have to understand what that means. It's not an embodied being with a big long white beard and a cane walking down from the sky. These are games people play. And it plays a lot of games, I'll tell you that. All right.
Hello,
Oh.
everybody. So I just want to share a little bit of my story and how I found you. 9 years ago, I lost a baby on March 20th. That was Good Friday, so not such a good Friday. And then a year later, I met my now husband, whose birthday is March 20th. And then March 20th of this year, I found your first video. And your first video, you had said to the audience, if you're looking for your ticket out of here, which I had been praying and using those exact words. So I was like, oh my gosh, this guy. And then I started my first 24-hour MORSE marathon. Who can relate to 24? Yeah. And within those first few videos, you mentioned healing spinal cord injuries. And my dad was a quad my whole life, and he said loud and clear on his deathbed, Emmy, in your lifetime, they're going to cure this. And so I feel so blessed, and just the gratitude, it's overwhelming, and just wanted to share that with you.
Oh, I love you.
The signs are everywhere.
Ain't it? Yeah. It truly is. What is our time right now?
We are at 12:30, so if you want
All right.
to take
So
a...
you know what? From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank you, and my staff was so great. Thank you.